All right, let's dive in. Today we're all about Forrest Gump. We're going deep, going to critically review it, talk about all the details. You with me?
Sounds good. I think it's interesting how Forrest Gump takes this personal story, and weaves it into these huge historical events. You almost can't tell what's real and what's fiction.
Yeah, it really does feel like watching Forrest's life right there in the middle of all these huge moments in America. Speaking of Forrest, he's such a, like, unexpected hero, right?
Totally. It's like he
Yeah.
really makes you think about, like, what does it even mean to be intelligent? His simplicity almost, it becomes his strength. He just kind of cuts through everything with this honesty that other people, they just don't have.
And Tom Hanks, I mean, come on, he nails it.
Yeah.
Brings Forrest to life, captures everything. That Oscar, totally deserved.
For sure. Hanks, he plays Forrest so genuinely, you can't help but root for him. Even with everything he goes through, the low IQ, those leg braces as a kid, you still see that strength, the strength his mom gave him.
Yeah, stupid is stupid does, right? Like
Wow.
his mom's belief in him. It's everything for Forrest.
Definitely. It's like that self-belief, it pushes him through all these massive moments in history. Like he's not just watching, he's part of it.
Totally. College football, Vietnam, playing ping pong in China. It's wild.
Yeah.
And you said it, he's not just there. He kind of stumbles into these things, but he ends up making a difference somehow.
It makes you think about how, our own little lives, they can actually bump up against these big historical things, like the Vietnam War, right? Forrest, he's right there, making friends, going through loss. It makes it real.
It doesn't hold back on how tough war is either. Bubba and everyone else, yeah, it hits hard.
It's interesting, though, like the movie shows us Vietnam through Forrest's eyes, right? Someone who doesn't really get all the politics, but sees all the people, the pain. It's different.
Then there's ping pong diplomacy in China. It's hard to believe, Forrest Gump easing tensions during the Cold War.
It's like they use humor and Forrest not knowing much to talk about these complicated situations. But it also shows like this huge moment, the start of things getting better between the US and China. Actually, ping pong diplomacy, it was a real thing. It really did help those two countries start talking again.
It's what keeps Forrest Gump so interesting. That mix of,
Yeah.
funny stuff, heartwarming moments, and then bam, real history keeps you hooked.
Makes you think too about how random things can shape our lives and even history. Like that feather, right, floating around. It's like fate, maybe?
Okay, so we talked about Forrest and all that history, but let's talk about Jenny. I mean, their relationship, it's a big deal in the movie.
Oh, yeah. Their love story, it's at the heart of it all. Forrest loving Jenny no matter what, even though their lives are so different. It gets to you.
It's true, like they're two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
Showing us how people reacted to all the change back then. Jenny's searching, trying to find her place while the world's going crazy. Forrest, he's got his values steady.
Their relationship, it really does explore all that change, like what Jenny goes through, protests, counterculture, her own struggle. It's all there.
And Forrest, he just loves her. Doesn't matter what she does, even when she makes choices that don't seem good for her.
That love, though, it's beautiful and sad, both. Shows how deeply Forrest feels, how he forgives, how much he loves, no matter what. But it makes you wonder about their relationship, too. Like, was it balanced?
Yeah, it's definitely complicated, something people still talk about today. It's not your typical fairy tale, that's for sure. But it's powerful. Love, loss, trying to connect when everything's changing. It makes you think.
It's not just Jenny, though. Like, all those people Forrest meets, they show us different parts of America back then. Lieutenant Dan, for example.
Boy,
Yeah.
Lieutenant Dan, what a story. At first, you're totally with him, losing his legs. It's awful. But then he gets so bitter.
It's like he represents that old idea of, like, what it means to be a man, all about the military being strong. When he loses his legs, it's like he doesn't know who he is anymore. But there's more to his story.
Right. That fishing trip with Forrest, that changes things for him.
Totally. Goes from like yelling at God to actually finding some peace. Shows how the movie's about resilience, starting over.
And him and Forrest, such different guys, but they become friends. Shows you how those unexpected friendships can really help you through things.
They help each other heal. It's really beautiful. Shows how it doesn't matter where you come from, what you've been through, you can still connect.
Speaking of connections,
Yeah.
the music in the movie, it's like a whole lesson in itself.
Yeah.
Takes you right back to that time, Elvis, Simon and Garfunkel, all of it.
The music, it's not just there in the background, it's like part of the story.
Yeah.
Each song, it captures the feeling of that moment Forrest is living.
It's so true. Like when he's running across America and that song comes on running on empty,
Hmm.
it's perfect, you know? All about freedom and searching for something.
Exactly. It adds so much emotion, you know. It makes you feel what Forrest is feeling. And the music, it's like something we all share, reminds us of our own memories, the music we grew up with.
Yeah, you can't hear those songs now without thinking of the movie. And talk about memorable scenes, we got to mention the humor. Like, even with all the serious stuff, the war, Lieutenant Dan losing his legs, there's still this lightness, you know, and it makes it even more powerful.
Forrest, he's so innocent, right? It leads to some really funny moments, like when he accidentally exposes Watergate.
Or when he becomes a ping pong champion and suddenly there he is helping China and America get along. The way he talks about it's so simple, so honest, it cracks me up.
Reminds us that even when things are crazy, it's okay to laugh. Doesn't mean we're not taking it seriously. It just lets us see things differently.
The movie does that so well, finding that balance. Okay, but we got to talk about the other side too.
Hmm.
Some people say the movie makes things too simple, you know, history, or that it's too sentimental.
It's true. The movie, it does make things a bit romantic. But remember, we're seeing everything through Forrest's eyes. He doesn't see the world the same way we do, so the events, they make sense to him, even if they're simplified.
Right, it's not a history book, it's more like a story, you know,
Hmm.
using history to talk about what it means to be human.
And within that story, it does show us how those big events affect people, like Lieutenant Dan and the war, or Jenny and those social movements.
And through it all, there's Forrest, always there. He's like a symbol of hope, never giving up.
Mhm.
Even when everything's crazy, he sticks to what he believes in.
I think that's why people connect with it. The world can feel so cynical, you know, so Forrest, with all his optimism, his kindness, it's comforting.
It's like he's saying, hey, no matter what, keep going. Don't lose faith.
Yeah, something we all need to hear sometimes.
Okay, so big picture. What do you think the filmmakers wanted us to take away from Forrest Gump?
Well, one thing's for sure. They're saying that, like, what we do matters. Forrest, he might not get the big picture, but his choices, even the little ones, they affect people.
Like when he decides to run across America, just 'cause.
Yeah.
And then everyone else starts running too.
Exactly. It shows us you don't have to do something huge to make a difference. Sometimes it's about listening to yourself, being yourself, and that can inspire others.
The movie also makes you think about uh, destiny versus free will, that feather floating around.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if things are already decided.
But then Forrest, he's making choices all the time, changing things, so it's like both are happening, you know? Fate and choices working together, it makes the story more interesting.
Yeah, it's like we can't control everything, but we can control how we react, what we do next.
And that's powerful. It reminds us that we're not just along for the ride, you know? We have choices, even if we don't know where they'll lead.
Now, let's talk fun stuff. Forrest Gump has so many iconic scenes, lines everyone knows. What's your favorite?
So many. But I gotta say, Forrest meeting President Kennedy, the way he just tells the story, so straightforward, so funny, and kind of sweet, too.
They asked me about Vietnam. I said, I don't know, never been. Classic Forrest.
Totally sums him up, right? Innocent, honest, and it's a great example of how the movie uses humor to talk about serious things.
Yeah, that contrast, it's what makes it work.
Yeah.
But also, it shows how Forrest sees the world differently. Meeting the president, it doesn't faze him. He just talks to him. Normal.
Makes you think, huh? Even with important people, just be yourself. Don't be afraid to be a little different. Be curious. That's what makes Forrest so interesting.
I agree. And I think his story connects with people because we all want to find our purpose, you know?
Mm-hmm.
We might not run across America or anything, but we all have challenges. Lose people, want to connect with others.
And Forrest Gump, it's like it's saying, maybe the answers aren't so complicated. Maybe it's about keeping things simple. Be kind, love people, and just keep going, even when you don't know what's next.
That's the heart of it, I think. What makes it stay with you? You know, we've covered a lot, the themes, the impact, all that. But I want to know, like, from a movie-making point of view, what makes Forrest Gump so good? Visually, emotionally, what grabs you?
Well, first off, the technical stuff, it's amazing. Like how they put Forrest right into those old film clips with CGI. It was groundbreaking. Makes it seem like he's really there with those historical people. Blurs the lines, you know?
Oh, for sure. The first time I saw it, I was like, how do they do that? It's so real. It pulls you right in.
And the acting. Come on, everyone's fantastic. Tom Hanks, obviously, he's amazing. But the rest of the cast, too. Sally Field as his mom, Robin Wright as Jenny, Gary Sinise as Lieutenant Dan, they all bring something special. You believe them, you feel for them.
Yeah, their performances, they really make those emotions hit harder. You're right there
Yeah.
with them, celebrating, hurting, all of it.
The music, too. Can't forget that. They picked these perfect songs, right, from each time period. It's more than just background music. It's like another character bringing those feelings out.
It's true. Like, you hear those songs and you're right back in that scene, feeling everything. The music became famous on its own, too. It's that good.
And how they tell the story, it's different. Forrest on that bench talking to anyone who listen. It's smart, lets him jump around in time, mixing his life with all that history. We get inside his head to see how he sees
It's
things.
like we're seeing those big events through his eyes, right?
Right.
With that innocence, that wonder he has. And it's like history, it's not just facts in a book. It's about people, what they went through.
Exactly. And Forrest Gump makes us look at history differently. Even if it seems simple or naive, there's something there. It's about how people are affected, their stories.
So after this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners take away? What sticks with you about Forrest Gump?
I think it's this. Life, it's unpredictable. It throws you curveballs, but no matter what, good or bad, there's always hope. You can find love, find meaning, connect with people.
Yeah, it's like even when things go wrong, even when it's tough, you got to keep going. Be open to whatever's next. Find the good in it.
And who knows, maybe if we all had a bit of Forrest in us, that open heart, that way of looking at things, we could make the world a better place. We might surprise ourselves.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our journey through Forrest Gump. It's been a fascinating look at, well, everything. The characters, the impact, how well made it is. I mean, there's a reason people still love this movie.
It's been great talking about it with you. And to everyone listening, if it's been a while, watch it again. You might see things differently now, appreciate it even more.
And remember, life is like a box of chocolates.
You never know what you're going to get.